Hello everybody, and welcome to the video. I am going to be talking about the beautiful filming, the beautiful filmmaking and cinematography that is in the Harry Potter films. Now, if you haven't seen the Harry Potter films, you'll get to see a few scenes that I'll be watching today, but my motivation behind this video is really to say, hey, if you analyze films correctly, if you learn how to get an eye for understanding how filmmakers choose framing, how they choose composition, and how they choose lighting, then you can easily make things incredibly cinematic. There are all kinds of controversies in 2021, 2022 that are... It's all like, if you want to be a filmmaker, you just got to like have a nice camera that can shoot slow motion and you just slap some LUTs on there and it makes everything good. Well, that's not like for filmmaking. If you want to be a great filmmaker, someone like, I don't know, Peter Jackson, for example, he's one of my favorites, Steven Spielberg, Chris Nolan. If you want to be great filmmakers like this, then you have to understand principles. You have to understand choices. And so I'm going to go ahead and get into some of these. And let's go over first, before we watch some stuff from Harry Potter, I want to go over some basic camera angles. As you see from here, we have 6. I'm going to get into, I think, a total of 9 different ones. And I have 3 more coming after this, but I want to talk about some framing composition that you'll actually see in the scenes that I will point out as we go through these Harry Potter scenes. So before I get into that, let me go through these real quick. The first one we have is a low angle. It's a very humble angle. And if you see from the example, you kind of see that the camera is up above the eye line and it's facing down. This is in film all the time, and it's basically to establish that there's something more powerful that's being observed. There's something greater, more authoritative in the scene than the person that's on camera. The next is the opposite. The next frame, it's the high angle. It's the shot looking up. Now, you might have like an Instagram, you might have your phone, you might be taking a picture for Instagram, and if you are a fan of H3, or you do like the whole neck thing and freaking just do the up angle, it's the least flattering angle, but it's not just about being unflattering. In classic cinematography, it's actually, if you're shooting up, it's an authority shot. It's a sign of power. It's a sign of dominating presence. And so that's kind of the opposite. If you have characters that are at odds with each other, even in a basic conversation, you'll see filmmakers use this to motivate the tension between them. The next one we have is the close-up. That's kind of just some of the shoulders and the top of the head, so you have some headroom. You have the choker shot. Some people also call it the extreme close-up, but it's a little back and forth. The basic idea is you could either call it an extreme close-up or a choker. That's basically cutting off close to the eyebrows and keeping the chin in the shot. And so there's a little variety of breathing room in that, but that covers the choker or extreme close-up. You also have a medium shot that kind of sits closer to the waist to the top of the head. And then you have the medium close-up, which is kind of mid-body to the top of the head. Now, the reason why there's such a variety of these is because as tension builds in a scene, you might want to get closer to a subject. Or if 2 people are talking to each other and they're not at odds, but they're talking about, I don't know, maybe they're getting to know each other, as we'll see from a scene from the first Harry Potter film. Ron and Harry meet. Well, they chose close-ups because, they're meeting each other. It's intimate. They're in a smaller space, and they're like, we're just going to be genuinely ourselves and get to know each other. So that's kind of the concept as to why you would use a variety of these, and you wouldn't just randomly throw in a shot without purpose. Sometimes people start wider, like they might start at a medium shot during a conversation and move to a close-up, and maybe they'll move to even an extreme close-up or choker shot to build motivation, to build tension, or to build closeness with the 2 characters. And then maybe if they're broken away by someone else coming to the scene, it'll cut back to the medium shot because I don't know, they were broken off between their connection. So there's a lot of reasons for angle choices. Let me get into the last three. We have here a medium long shot, and that's basically from the knees to the top of the head. And then you have a full shot, and that's from kind of the bottom of the feet, the toes, to the top of the head. And then finally, we have a wide shot. Some people also might consider what I'm showing an example here an extreme wide. And that's basically there's an environment around you, and there is something, the focus of the image in frame. It could be a bird flying through the sky, and that would be an extreme wide shot. If the bird is the focus, or a person, or a car, it could be anything, but basically the focus is there's an environment surrounding, and there's a thing that is the most important in the image. That is a wide shot. So now that we've kind of established all of these different framing ways, these basic framing ways, I want us to think about, as we go through the couple short clips I have, how they're choosing framing. Are they choosing a medium shot? Are they getting a close-up? Are they getting extreme close-up or a choker? Are they wider? Why are they wider? Are they extreme wide? I know with Harry Potter, they had these elaborate sets in these big classrooms, and so there's a reason why they might want to show that off, and so they might have an extreme wide shot. But let's just think about as we go through this. Before we start though, I want to point out two things really quickly. I mentioned at the top that lighting is incredibly important to filming, to making something look cinematic. I want to give you a little tip here. If you've ever wondered why certain films just look so incredibly cinematic, for lack of a better word, would be because of a basic simple thing that you'll see a lot here, and it's called motivated lighting mixed with shadow side. And if you can understand this principle, you could actually start making your shots on your camera, on any camera, even on a cell phone, if you do it right, look cinematic tomorrow, as long as you start applying these principles. And what I mean by motivated lighting is simply, if you have a light source like a window or a candle or a fireplace or a lamp, you should make the lighting on your subject look like it's being motivated from that light source. And then what I say by shadow side is, whenever a camera is, like, if you're acting, obviously rarely do you ever look into the lens like I'm doing now. A lot of times characters are talking to each other and they're looking just past the lens, or they're doing a side shot and they're talking to each other. Say there was a light right here. Well, if I'm looking this way, then the light would be hitting this side of my face. That means the camera would be on my shadow side, because the light will be casting shadows on this side of the frame. That's actually a cinematic pro move. If you shoot on the shadow side more than you shoot on the light side, then you're actually going to make your stuff look incredible. And people will be like, wow, this looks so amazing, but I don't really know why it looks amazing. Well, it's a simple trick. You shot shadow side, and you'll see that in these clips as well. So let's go ahead and start watching these clips. This is where Ron and Harry meet for the first time.
Excuse me. Do you mind? Everywhere else is full. Not at all.
All right, he's walking in. We have an establishing shot. It's kind of like a medium long shot, but it also can be, it's technically knees up. That's a two shot, so there are two people in the frame, and it's from the knees up. So we have an establishing two shot of where they are sitting. But also think of this, we have an establishing shot of where the light source for this train car is for their room. It's the window that is on the other side of them. So right off the bat, they're showing us an example of shooting shadow side, because the light source is coming from the window on the opposite side of where the camera is. Let's keep going.
I'm Ron, by the way. Ron Weasley. I'm Harry Potter. So it's true. I mean, do you really have the what?
Now, did you notice that they actually were sitting at kind of medium close-ups, which is kind of below the chest to the top of the head, for their whole conversation until he was asking, do you have the scar? And he was timid to ask him. And when he asked him that, it moved to a close-up. It moved to cutting at his shoulders instead of down like mid-body. So for Ron and Harry, it actually got closer as he was asking a personal question. Also notice they're still on shadow side. They're looking at each other off camera, and the light source is still on the same side that it was between them. So they're still shooting on the shadow side if the light source is on this side. Let's keep going.
Anything off the trolley, dears? No, thanks. I'm all set. We'll take the lot. Whoa.
All right. So, kind of an interesting thing about this scene is something I noticed. They didn't choose to go back to that wide shot that they opened with when they got interrupted by the lady with the cart who's offering to sell them some candy or whatever. If I was filming this, I would actually probably choose to go back to the wide shot because their conversation is being broken. And so you get away from that close up. It was just a choice creatively. Sometimes it's harder to analyze exactly every single choice because it's a film. I mean, we're talking about an hour and a half, 90 minutes to 2 hours plus in length to tell a story. And so not every creative decision is perfect, but they do hit it on the nail. Well, they hit it on the head most of the time. But I think maybe they probably used the idea of turning the camera around and showing the cart and bringing in that lady with that pan up. All of a sudden, it's enough of a break from their conversation that they don't have to go to the wide shot to tell the audience what's happening. They probably showed enough of it. So that was a great shot. It was a very simple one, very easy conversation to follow. Let's go to a little bit more of a complex one where we have Harry and what's the blonde kid's name? I forgot his name. The bully. Malfoy. They're practice dueling in front of the whole school. Or at least their class. And they have teachers present. Let's go ahead and watch this. Notice, if you know anything about the 180-degree rule, will kind of follow me on this as well. I'll talk about that in another future video, but if you kind of know about that rule already, pay attention to the framing that they have for the 180-degree rule. Right off the bat, I want to just point out the fact they're dueling, and so the camera is at eye level. They're at each other, and also look at the lighting. The motivated lighting from those windows and those fire lamps around them is motivating the light that is being placed on them. I mean, you have a harsh shadow on the side of Harry and Malfoy, or hard light, that because it's coming from those directed beams of light from those windows, and that's the motivation to fill the whole room. And then you have accents of orange, which is really nice. That color difference between that bluish light that comes from, I guess, the sunlight mixed with that tungsten fire candle color. It adds depth to your image, not just depth of field, but it actually adds color depth. So they're still at eye level, all right? We have an establishing shot, and we're showing everybody in the room.
On the count of 3, cast your charms to...
All right, so right off the bat, we have the first authority shot of the scene. It's showing the windows, it's showing where the light source is, and also we have an authority. So this is the teacher. He's like, I'm going to teach these youngsters about magic, and I'm in charge of this group of kids. So I tell him what to do. We have an authority shot. This is basically his, time to shine in the scene.
To disarm your opponent, only to disarm. We don't want any accidents here. 1.
Notice real quick, it cut to an eye line scene. It got rid of the authority shot when he looks across the way at Snape, because he realizes they're equals at this point. He might even be a little intimidated by him.
2.
All right. And so obviously they're cutting away a lot because they want to show the action. They choose to do that in wider angles to establish and to show where they are on this long mat. Also, here's another authority shot. I've noticed Harry Potter, especially the early films, use authority and low angle shots extremely often. But check this one out between Malfoy and Snape. See, it's just like Malfoy is like humbled, and Snape's like, "You're making me look bad. Do your thing."
I said disarm only.
Seven Sophia!
Potter, I'll get rid of it for you. Allow me, Professor Snape. Volate as...
Notice this is another like wider but kind of authority shot because it's going to be a humorous moment where he's not able to do anything about it. But according to the snake, at this moment, he has authority. Also, in between kind of where the snake is created and now, they've been flip-flopping on the 180-degree rule. If you know what that is, it's an interesting choice. I would say it's a tad bit confusing. You kind of lose the sense of where people are in the room if you're not paying close attention, especially with all those kids. So I'm not sure why they chose to do that, but at least from here on out, they switch sides. So Harry was looking this direction on camera towards Malfoy. Malfoy was looking this direction. Now Harry's looking this direction and the snake is looking this direction. Pay attention to this. Again, between Harry and the snake, we have the authority and low angle shots once again because Harry is showing dominance over the snake.
Impera, Ivanaska.
All right. I have one more clip for you before I go, but I just want to point out this was probably a very difficult scene to film. And you might say, oh, there's a lot of people there. Yeah, that's a factor. Oh, there's a lot of action. Yes, that's definitely a factor. I would actually say the lighting in this was very complex and very difficult because they have a lot of stuff to light. If this was a studio and that wasn't actually real light coming through, which I am 99% sure that was all artificial light, you have to literally build a set and then pump in huge, probably RE lights into those windows so that you can illuminate everything you need. It's a very complex system, and then all of these close-ups and wide shots, they had to take time to make sure the light was correct. Also notice when I talked about the 180-degree rule and switching sides of field of direction as they're looking, if you look, the whole time we had Harry had window harsh light on the side that was opposite to the shadow side when he was confronting Malfoy. And then when he switched, all of a sudden that same side was the shadow side now, and he had candlelight lighting the other side of his face. So if you pay attention to these little details, you'll see in production, they had to make these choices constantly, which is actually inconsistent with the lighting from the just a few seconds ago in the scene. But they make these choices and they make it subtle to make it look cinematic, so it's pleasing to look at, but also so that it's kind of a masterpiece. Every shot looks well crafted. Every shot could be hung up on the wall. So let's go ahead and go to the last scene I want to show you, and this is a deleted scene that I found on YouTube. So let's take a look at this. So we have an extreme wide shot.
As such, I don't expect many of you to.
We had 2 extreme wide shots in a row, and that's just to establish the room as a whole. And if you're paying attention, it also establishes where the light source is coming from. So we have tiny candles that's kind of illuminating the kids in the classroom, but the main source are the windows once again.
To appreciate the subtle science and exact art that is potion making, however, for those select few who possess the predisposition.
Notice we have, so far with the professor, we have authority shots over everybody. If you pay attention, like when Malfoy, it was eye level because Malfoy thinks he's got the leg up in this class. He's the best here. He doesn't feel like he's humbled by Snape.
I can teach you how to bewitch the mind and ensnare the senses. I can tell you how to bottle fame, brew glory, and even put a stopper in death. Then again, maybe...
Now, right off the bat, we have that close-up of Harry, and it goes right to a humble shot because of what he's about to say to him.
Some of you have come to Hogwarts in possession of abilities so formidable that you feel confident enough to not pay attention. Mr. Potter.
This is an intense authority shot.
Our new celebrity. Tell me, what would I get if I added powdered root of asphodel to an infusion of wormwood?
So far we have more of these wider shots of each other.
Well, let's try again. Where, Mr. Potter, would you look if I asked you to find me a bezoar?
I don't know, sir.
And what is the difference between Monkshood and Wolfbane?
And we have these individual close-up shots of people observing with other people behind them, not completely, lost with depth of field because it's meant to feel like people just observing. And it's eye level with Hermione because
I don't know, sir.
she's confident in her answer.
Pity. Clearly, fame isn't everything, is it, Mr. Potter?
Clearly, Hermione knows. Seems a pity not to ask her.
Silence.
See, we're getting more to the close-ups, even though they're sticking with that establishing shot because the tension is building between them.
Put your hand down, you silly girl.
The camera's coming in, see that?
For your information, Potter, asphodel and wormwood make a sleeping potion
Close
so
up.
powerful it is known as the draught of the living dead. A bezoar is a stone.
And now we're back
taken
to
from the stomach of
this
a goat and it will save
very
from
tight
use for
close-up.
poisons. As for Monkshood and Wolfbane, they are the same plant, which also goes by the name of aconite. Well, why aren't you all copying this down?
And then it breaks that close-up because he addressed the whole room.
And Gryffindors, note that 5 points will be taken from your house for your classmates' cheek.
One last authority shot as he jabs at their whole class. All right. Very good. So those are all the shots I wanted to say. I wanted to point out, I was kind of giving you a play-by-play, but notice with the lighting in that room, it was very dark on Snape because he was standing with his back to the main light source. So they chose to illuminate his face just enough to see it with this more orangish color to represent the candles being placed on his face. And it's a creative choice. I mean, if you're going to have a big old beautiful window, well, the teacher's back is probably going to be back to that window. And so you have to come up with another way to illuminate the face and make it look like it is motivated light. So once again, if we watch films like this all the time, then you can actually learn how to become a cinematographer in a lot of ways. Now, there are other things like learning how the camera works and learning even how to work on a set or with people. But the cool thing about it is that if you pay attention, then you actually learn the principles that cinematographers use all the time when choosing how to structure their scene with framing and lighting. So if you like this very much, I want to ask you, please subscribe. I would really appreciate it. Leave a comment. Let me know what you thought. Yeah, thanks.